Good evening and welcome to another Community MTV Community Forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell. Good evening and welcome. We're glad you can join us this evening. And of course, Chris Diali, our co-host. Good evening, Chris. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Byron, and a very good evening to our viewers and listeners out there. And we hope this evening to, as usual, bring you a program that will probably be held in great interest.
Tell us about our guest today, Chris.
Yes, our guest this evening is Mr. Anslem Clouden, attorney at law, and specializes in law of the sea. But this evening he's going to be here talking to us about the Cannabis Committee, which he now chairs, and the progress they are making and the way they expect to bring this in terms of medicinal cannabis as we, as a society and a country, look to invest in that area.
So we look forward to having Brother Clouden. Chris, the ongoing saga with Father Paul and the Bishop. Every day there's a new dimension to it, you know. I wonder how it's going to end, and will it end?
Well, you know, unfortunately, I think, first of all, I don't think it should have been aired in the public as it ought to, and has developed. That's unfortunate. However, I think the Archbishop pronounced today that the suspension that Bishop Harvey had spoken about earlier is going to be held in force and is going to be maintained. And of course, the other part of it was he spoke about you cannot remove a bishop by petitioners signing a petition. So there's a process and a thing, and he explained that Harvey had resigned. The Pope had asked him to stay on until a suitable replacement was found. So I think if the parishioners up there were led into signing a petition thinking that that could influence or put pressure on the administration of the Catholic Church in the diocese to remove Bishop Harvey, I think they'll be very disappointed to learn that.
So that's not going to go anywhere.
That's not going to go anywhere.
But what about Father Paul himself? I mean, the church, I would say, consider him now as being it's controversial, of course. Well, I mean, the way he has moved, how he has moved publicly against the bishop, he didn't follow the mediation agreement. So there's a number of things sitting on him. Where is it still going to end?
The longer this goes on, to me, the more Father Gerard Paul looks unprofessional in what is happening and how it's developing. So you may argue that you agree with some of the points he have made in terms of the Gaza-Palestinian issue and some other areas, and you know, people think he's a outspoken guy, and so be it, nothing wrong with that. However, the approach and the way in which he wants to be part of a part of an organization and behaving how he's behaving, I think is leading down to him being very unprofessional in what he's doing.
Well, the Archbishop says he believes in prayers. He believed prayer would bring a resolution to the matter, that Father Paul is a good priest, and hopefully they will reach some, arrive at some solution to this. The FROC provided an economic update, a report. But Chris, what I found about the report, it followed very closely on the IMF last report in November, which said that the economy was growing robustly. In fact, that's the term used. Growth is being driven by construction and sustained increase in tourism arrivals, which is a good thing. Financial sector, the liquidity, government revenue is up. You have the CBI that's performing. And so the FROC report basically enhanced that and spoke about this. You expected any differences there?
Well, I was a bit disappointed. First of all, let me just say, the FROC changed their name from Fiscal Resilience.
Yeah.
There's a Fiscal Resilience Responsibility Act that came into being, replacing the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Right, yeah.
And one of the reasons, number of reasons they gave for changing it is things that they felt was weak in the act. Now, when I remembered Fiscal Responsibility Act came into place, it was in the time when P.S. Timothy Antoine was there, and we were redoing all the debt things and so on after Ivan and so forth. And one of the things that the IMF was particularly concerned about is how government ministers will spend, and spend loosely. The Responsibility Act came in to put, if you want to say, a sort of check and balance on how monies are spent without accounting for it properly and give guidelines as to where wage bill must go, primary balance, debt to GDP and all of that. The Fiscal Resilience Act is saying time to replace that and replace it with things that talk about, to me, cosmetic, because I mean that's just my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
But there have, I don't know, for example, they have moved the salaries and wages cap to GDP from 9% in the Act to 13%. And this FOC report says that the wage bill of 13% of GDP in budget 2024, it is the budgeted to be 9.7, projected in 25 and 26 to be 9.4 and 9. But they're not saying what it is actually at now. Some people postulate it's gone past 13 already, based on all the increases government have given and the different things and bringing more people onto the regularizing
they
and so on.
They recently also adjusted the amount of money, moving from 20,000 to 100,000, the amount of, in a project that can be spent directly.
Yeah.
So
I forget the real term now.
It doesn't have to go to the procurement board.
Right.
Procurement. That gives the government greater leverage, one could say.
Yes. And again,
that should help with expedite implementation, they say.
Well, we hope.
Yeah.
But again, if it's loose, too loose in terms of accountability and things, because you want speed, and you're not paying attention to having the right documents get signed, go before a procurement board and ensure that everything is in place. You question whether or not what the FROC have done in terms of moving it from a Responsibility Act to Resilience Act.
So, in other words, they have a different responsibility, Chris.
That's right.
They're looking at it differently. But just in terms of the economy, in terms of where it's going, what's happening now, it's on track based on what the IMF had reported, based on what we see presently.
The projected growth for the next 2-3 years is going to be much less. It ended 2023 at 5.1%, I think, of GDP. The projection for 2024 is 4.6 thereabout. I could be wrong. But the projections after that, 25 and 26, is 3 point something. Until 3.4, 3.2 thereabout averaging. And the debt, the KPI for the debt, the performance is to get the public debt to GDP to 60%. Now the budget 2024 is suggesting that it's going to get to 73.3, and for 2025, 71.9. Now, all of these are against the fact that no major crisis hit us in a hurricane season and all of that, and then they suspend the rules and so forth to get themselves back into, And so when you look at this carefully, I think there's a lot to be concerned about. We can't talk about everything here now. We could probably take it up in another program because there are a lot of things there that need to be.
Chris, today there seemed to be a successful Sustainable Tourism Conference, Grenada Regional Conference, based on what was reported. Kudos for the organizers, Grenada.
Yes, Grenada had put in a bid, and I think the expectation was supposed to be 150 plus or minus, and they got over 200 participants, which speaks volumes to the urgency for the tourism sector in the region when it comes to being sustainable and supporting sustainability for beaches, the bleaching that is happening, the coral reefs, everything else, the sea rises and so on, and how we're going to go forward to deal with all this, and so we have an environment that is preserved so that tourists can come and enjoy it, including ourselves. And the comments coming from the conference from visitors is that they're very impressed with Grenada and the pureness, the pure Grenada, and what is happening there. The sculpture, underwater sculpture park was a big hit, and they did some hikes, and it's ready. And of course, you couldn't leave out the part about the friendliness of the people, that everybody thinks.
So we're in a good position.
We're in a good place.
Tourism-wise. Yeah. And it's interesting, I was in a sculpture park the other day. I frequent there almost every week, Chris, and I saw, in fact, they've started patrols in the area again, right. Marine Protection Committee, so that's very good. Chris, just an update on Gaza, the Middle East crisis there. I see earlier this week Jamaica had come forward and has recognized the Palestinian state. It's a good thing. Of course, Grenada did this together with Haiti in 2013. So we've been there 11 years plus, recognizing, and that's important. And that's why we have an ambassador. And I'm to understand that the ambassador will be visiting Grenada within the next, probably sometime next week. So I look forward to that. But certainly the killings continue. Over 34,000 Palestinians. And particularly including children, 14,500. It's a lot of children.
And that's what we know of. When a rubble clears.
Yeah, but what they said is that 77,000 people have been injured, and there's 7,000 that are assumed to be under the rubble due to the bombing and the leveling of Gaza. So this is...
So 34,000 will suddenly climb to 40 plus.
Yeah. This is just...
The only major thing that happened today or yesterday was the passing in Congress of the aid package for the war with Russia and Ukraine. They're getting $60-something billion out of this, $90 billion. And, aid for the Gaza Israeli thing, some monies have been passed for that as well. And I'm hoping some monies have been allocated for the war in Sudan and in Haiti. Because they spoke about those too. So let us hope that some of these monies could be channeled and we could see a difference. In difference meaning the suspension of these wars.
Yes.
And the starvation of the people.
Keep in mind that 90 plus billion, close to $100 billion that have been approved, the bulk of it is going to the war industry, the armament industry.
Which the U.S. benefits from.
Absolutely. So what they're doing, that they've essentially shipped their old weapons, the stocks, to Israel and to Ukraine, and they will be producing new stocks. So the industry continues.
Yes.
Chris, let's take a break. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back with Anslem Clouden to discuss what's happening with the cannabis marijuana industry initiative in Grenada. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Concerned about your general health and wellness?
Do you need to know your complete blood count, lipid profile, or HbA1c?
Maybe you're an athlete or work in an environment that requires regular drug screening.
Interested in STI screening? What about renal, liver, or thyroid tests?
All these tests, plus hundreds more, are available at Allied Laboratories.
At Allied Laboratories, we are committed to providing the best service with accurate results. We now have 3 fully equipped locations to better serve you. You can contact our Grand Anse branch at 403-3488. You can contact our Grenville branch at 410-3488. Or you can contact our newest addition, the Guelph branch, at 404-3488. Or send us an email.
We're taking care of Grenada. Get ready for the ultimate steel band extravaganza. Pan Expression is back, and it's bigger and better than ever before. Join us on Sunday, April 28th at the Tan T Netball Cove for an unforgettable event presented by the Grenada Steel Band Association in collaboration with the National Lottery Authority, Spice Mass Corporation, and Blue Bubbles. 7 of Grenada's top steel bands will be competing for the prestigious title of Pan Expression's champion. It's the showdown you don't want to miss. Bring the entire family and your friends for a magical evening filled with incredible music and performances that will have you dancing all night long. Admission $20, children under 12 pay half price. We've got delicious food and drinks for everyone to enjoy, along with fun treats for the kids. Pan Expression starts at 6 p.m. No unauthorized vending allowed. Don't miss Pan Expression 2024, where the rhythm of steel band will fill the air with joy and excitement. See you there.
Sunshine Promotions is rolling out the red carpet for all mothers. It's a night of love. Saturday, May 11th at the dazzling Radisson Crown Ballroom. The celebration kicks off at 8 p.m. with the show starting at 9 p.m. Promising a night filled with joy, music, and appreciation. Prepare to be swept off your feet with performances from the legendary Mikey Spice. Mikey Spice. The the dynamic Lion Paw, the sensational Valine, and the soulful Laura Lisa. It's a lineup that promises an unforgettable night. Get your limited early bird tickets for just $100 EC and ensure you're part of this grand salute to mothers. Tickets available at Giddens Pharmacy in St. George's, Wall Street, Wharf and Grenville, Chucky's Bar, Cass Unisex Boutique, Quick Stop, Pierre's Barbershop in Victoria, Calico Shopping Center in Sates, Rena Mills in Carriacou, Crown Collection, Health Plus Pharmacy Grenville, Heather's Boutique, and GoToFed.com. Stay connected with Sunshine Promotions on Facebook and Instagram for all details. It's a night of love, Saturday, May 11th at the Radisson Crown Ballroom.
Welcome back, viewers. And as advertised earlier, we have in studio with us our special guest, Mr. Anslem Clouden, attorney at law for many, many years. And he is now the chairman of the Cannabis Committee that is looking at seeing how we can enact and decriminalize certain aspects of this whole industry and where we're going with it in terms of the medicinal aspect of it. So, Brother Clouden, good evening and welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Brother Diali, or should I say Comrade Diali. It's always a great pleasure to be on the program, and I express my gratitude for having me.
Right, so let's start off with the state of play as it relates to the committee, this new committee that you're now chairman of.
Yeah.
Where exactly are we with the whole issue? But let's start off again. Let me say, what are the main objectives of the committee that you now chair?
Very well. Good sentence and well pronounced. The proposed objective of the committee is to, as it were, recommend to the government a cannabis act that would prevent young persons from accessing cannabis, to protect public health and public safety by establishing strict product safety and product quality requirements, and to deter criminal activity by imposing serious criminal penalties for those operating outside the proposed legal framework. 2, the proposed act is also intended to reduce the burden on the criminal justice system in relation to cannabis. And finally, and this is the raison d'être, to provide medicinal cannabis for the treatment of persons seriously ill who have consulted with a doctor and have no therapeutic alternative but to be prescribed medicinally the use of cannabis. And of course, to authorize companies for the growing of medicinal cannabis.
Through a license arrangement. And
through licensing arrangements, which I would get to in the course of my discussion.
Right, so in terms of, as the objectives of the committee,
yes.
Where is the committee now in relation to the recommendation to government for this act, this Cannabis Act, because this will be the pivotal piece of document
yes.
that will guide all the objectives, I presume,
yes.
that was laid out a short while ago.
Yes, well that is correct. But for the time being, okay, because of the draconian provisions of the present act, the Drug Prevention and Control Act, the relevant sections of that act sections 6, sections 11 with respect to cultivation, sections 45. We need an immediate respect in the context of the previous commission that was set up had recommended to the minister, the then Minister of Agriculture, Adrian Thomas, and I have a letter here that in my capacity as an advisor to the Attorney General, I was nominated on the previous commission by the Attorney General, Claudette Joseph. And one of the things that we had suggested in the context of law enforcement was to amend the Drug Prevention and Control Act so as to avoid young people, because it's a fact. Persons between 18 up 25, 30, 35. They have gone to TAMCC, they have good jobs, but everybody consume recreational cannabis, the world over. I read to you what the Germans have discovered, and they have done tremendous research in this area. And that's why they have made it on the 1st of April legal for recreational use by adults age 18 and over in a limited capacity since April 1st, 2024. As of February 2024, it has been assessed that 4.5 million Germans use cannabis. Recreationally.
Well, we can
the
come
same
back to
obtains
that.
with us here.
Yeah.
You go on the block, man, everybody's hustling a little joint, and you see them with a grinder. So what we have to do, as I have initially indicated,
that is the decriminalization aspect.
Decriminalization aspect.
So that if you get somebody with a joint or 2 joints or spliff or whatever, they don't be criminally charged.
Precisely.
And there will be a maximum to this because there's the issue of distribution versus personal use.
Yes. So we had, precisely, and this is as a first step, because it would ultimately redound to our evaluation and assessment as to how our people consume cannabis, both medicinally and otherwise. So in the initial proposed amendment by the former commission, we had suggested that household can have 5 trees for medicinal purposes. That means they would only plant or cultivate trees that is specifically engineered for the CDB. That's a medicinal compound in the plant itself. So cultivation as is done in St. Vincent, and I have the Vincentian Act here, they have set up an entire medical Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I would suggest that we follow that act. They have set up a medicinal cannabis authority. And that authority is mandated to cultivate, and the huge companies come in. I've been to St. Vincent. I observe their operation with medicinal cannabis. But just to read the introduction to the act, he said, an act to provide for the establishment of medicinal cannabis industry, to regulate the cultivation, supply, possession, production, and use of cannabis for medicinal purposes. That is, for the treatment of persons with qualifying medical conditions, to provide for the establishment of the Medicinal Cannabis Authority and the Medicinal Cannabis Advisory Council, and for matters and purposes incidental thereto. So what's St. now? And they're making millions and millions of dollars as a consequence through the export of medicinal cannabis to Europe, even Germany. And you'll see where Germany initially imported cannabis. The European Union imports medicinal cannabis. So
your committee is going to suggest to government or recommend to government
yes,
this act that's going to cover medicinal, decriminalization and so on.
Yes.
Is it that we're going to do this in phases, or is it that the government, when you come up with a draft act, of course, or the bill, the issue is how much consultation needs to be done.
Well, look.
When that is done, or is it?
To be quite frank, there is to be consultation. But let us be frank. We live in the global village. Everybody knows that, look, cannabis, ganja, marijuana has certain medicinal and recreational attributes. Okay?
And religious.
And religious, sacramental. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Thank you.
Don't forget our good friends in the
Rastafarian community. Yeah. Of course. And Antigua spent a lot of time in their legislation speaking of cannabis in the sacramental context, just what you said. But just to substantiate what you have said and to bring the truth of it out. Cannabis, and this is the Antigua and Barbuda Cannabis Act of 2018, published in the official Gazette. And this is what it says. Cannabis for sacramental and religious purposes. Permitted use of cannabis for religious purposes, application for authorization by the authority, cultivation of cannabis by a religious body, sacramental dispensaries, possession of cannabis authorized for religious use, use of cannabis at private dwelling place of worship or at exempt event, revocation order and the like. The point is, the Rastafarian community from time immemorial have utilized this herb, and they have pronounced to the world that sacramentally they use it. Just as the Eucharist in the Catholic Church, there's the point where you get to the consecration, the body and blood, the bread and wine, and that's a very sacred moment. I remember as an acolyte at the Anglican Church, Christ the King in Carriacou. I was the boat, we call it a boat fellow. I threw the incense on the priest, and he would then go around the altar to combat and subdue evil spirits. But whenever the consecration or the Eucharist is being introduced, the bells ring. You hear clink, 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 clink. Well, the Rastas do the same in a different context. Yeah. They smoke and they beat their drums. Mm-hmm. So I think it was very, very worthy of the Antiguan government to at least enshrine in their legislation the sacramental use of cannabis. Yes.
Clouden Anslem, here's the thing. There are persons out there who believe that politicians are playing politics with this, that it's not going to happen. CARICOM report on this is about 10 years old, you know. There was a previous committee that established by government of Grenada that you were on that worked for a year, yeah. The government announced in its budget address in December that within the first quarter of 2024, legislations would be enacted to deal with the decriminalization of marijuana. It hasn't happened. We have a new Minister of Agriculture, a new committee has been formed. The information is another. Where is this going? I mean, nobody believes. Let me finish. Nobody believes that this is going to happen. Nobody believes it's going to happen. The guys out there, they're saying, just heard there that persons are still being arrested for a split,
Yeah.
for a joint.
Yes, that's
when is it
true.
going to end?
That's right.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
I agree with you. And look, persons are being charged,
Yeah.
and the police, the law enforcement, rather than respecting government's policy
Yeah.
and have what you call some level of tolerance.
Yeah.
They just raided some guys coming in with 200 and something pounds of weed from St. Vincent. Now tell me the truth. Weed can't grow it here because the police would raid you and put it in flames. Millions of dollars going up in smoke. And what is really...
So
I
Anslem,
would say
Anslem, will it happen?
it's happening.
When?
6
I mean,
weeks.
give us some timeline
6
here.
weeks. 6 weeks for
You
the
were here before.
decriminalization.
You were here
Yeah,
before. Chris,
yeah.
your evidence.
Yeah.
He was here before, Chris,
Yes.
last year, and he says, look, Byron, Chris, by
March.
December,
March,
yeah.
it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
This is April,
Yeah.
and you have a new committee formed. But let's go on. So we're saying that we're approaching this cannabis industry.
6 weeks from when?
6 weeks from the inception of the committee.
And the
6 weeks.
The committee
To-
started?
for the decriminalization aspect.
Okay.
I'm going to bet on that it won't happen.
So
Let's
6
go on,
weeks-
though.
It's gonna happen.
Let's
6
go
weeks
on.
brings
Yeah.
us to
Yeah.
end of April, May.
By May, well, I
May.
have targeted June
Right.
with discussions. Look, the minister himself, let me tell you, I have tremendous respect for Minister Andrews, the Minister of Agriculture. And he has lamented the fact that it takes so long to get things done in the bureaucracy. And you well know, Byron, that you have certain plans in the bureaucracy that is trying to hold back on moving forward because they think that the old
Your
the old guard is going to come.
reputation is on the line.
Of course it is.
Right now.
Yes.
Okay, let's
And you're
move on. Let's
perfectly
move
right.
on. So we are looking towards this cannabis industry. We are approaching it as an industry. We are looking towards a revenue stream. We're saying that it can boost. It has economic potential, economic growth.
Precisely.
It can create jobs. But the question I have to you: what gives Caribbean countries and Grenada a competitive advantage in this very global market? Particularly, the money is really in the medicinal aspect
Precisely.
of it.
And that's why we are targeted.
And besides, we are late. Everybody, as you said,
Yeah.
Barbados is ahead. They have
Yeah.
invested millions and millions of
Precisely.
foreign money in the industry. St.
St. Vincent
Vincent,
has.
and they're all gone.
Yeah.
Jamaica?
Jamaica, yeah. Trinidad.
Where are we?
Well, we get in there, but you know the good thing and the saving grace
Yeah.
about Grenada?
Yeah.
And this is why I've
Yeah.
always said Grenada, Carriacou,
Yeah.
Petit Martinique.
Yeah.
Well, you know I'm from Carriacou, so I would always be more nationalistic. But my mother is from Grenada, so I'm part.
You're a Grenadian.
I'm half and half.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let me tell you something,
Yeah.
Byron. The economic potential of this industry is unimaginable. But more so, the fact that, look, the thinking, where are we going? How are we getting there? Look, we have now appointed a consultant. I am going to take this commitment I have made to getting the proposed amended bill from the last commission
For the
acted upon.
decriminalization.
Because you know why, Byron? A lot of our young people, their futures have been destroyed. These magistrates and the police, because of their uncertainty and the lack of commitment and the lack of tolerance on the law enforcement aspect of all of this, young people are still arrested and charged. I had a young man not too long ago. He's an IT expert. He graduated from TAMCC. He's doing IT by correspondence. He was going home on the evening. He had his bag on a knapsack on his shoulder. Police pulled up. without any reasonable and probable grounds. They looked at him and found him suspicious. So they say they wanted to search his bag, which is illegal. The right to privacy. Unless he is a suspect for something, you can't just search him like that without a warrant. So we pulled him over, searched him. They found about 5 marijuana sticks in his bag. They arrested him, charged him. I had to beg the magistrate, go down on my knees so that she wouldn't register a conviction against him.
Criminal record.
He pleaded guilty because he's found in possession, control, and custody of the thing. And he had knowledge that it was his little weed he's going home to have his smoke. You know what the magistrate said? He said, well, you know, Mr. Clouden, I understand, but I have to enforce the law. And this is the option I have. And she finally agreed that if he pays the fine for 5 marijuana cigarettes, $1,200, forthwith, meaning he has to find that money before she rises from the bench, she would not register a conviction against him. I mean, come on. Look at the disadvantage that our youth here suffer, as opposed to youths in St. Vincent,
other
Barbados, Trinidad.
But you talk about
St.
youth,
Lucia.
Anslem, there's an issue here, the social implications. How are we going to protect minors? Additionally, we've seen these so-called recreational drugs, like marijuana, have laid waste to many users. There are reports that people using large amounts experience lower life satisfaction, poor health, mental health, poor physical health, and more relationship problems. What are the safeguards? Should the public be concerned here in going forward?
Of course. There will be strict prohibition against the use and selling of cannabis to minors. As a matter of fact, let me tell you what the proposal is going to be before we even submit it to the government, okay? This proposal is intended to protect young people from cannabis consumption, all right? And we would have strict laws. I read it out in the preamble, remember?
Yes.
The objectives of the proposed act are to prevent young persons from accessing cannabis and to protect public health and public safety. Now, the laws would be exceedingly harsh on those who sell cannabis to minors, meaning persons under the age of 18, okay? The proposal would be to...
Why not 21? UVI went to 21.
Yeah,
US UVI went to 21.
Yeah, but there's a brain developmental issue under 18 and above 18.
Above 18, yes.
According to the CARICOM study.
Yes, and CARICOM recommended 18.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the scientific research governing the development of the brain and the effects or the deleterious effects of cannabis on young people under 18. So that we, well, I can speak for myself as a chairperson because the committee hasn't yet considered every aspect. We've just started, and I want to get something done in 6 weeks. So, as you see, I am prepared. So we put a proposal in addition to maybe doing some amendments to the proposed amended bill that was submitted by the past commission. Look, man, we have to stop taking the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. This is no time to be gradual because we're getting left behind. This is time to move with alacrity and expedition and speed, protecting our young people, getting our economic aspect of the cannabis industry going, specifically medicinal. Let me read to you something.
Well,
Go ahead,
go ahead, Chris.
Yeah,
please.
one of the things, I hear you speak about the control and the recreational use and the law, but we are famous in our region for putting in laws with penalties and strong penalties, but we never have the infrastructure to follow up and ensure that those control mechanisms we put in place are kept in place. And Canada has had that problem. Canada have had that. Canada have recreational use now that they're concerned about now that youths under 18 is significantly using more marijuana, cannabis for recreational use. And it is a problem. How
That
does
is
the
true.
committee plan to change what we know to get the control that we need?
Well, we have to have a proper investigatory arm of the juvenile. Well, you have to train your police officers to deal with juveniles in a particular context and not be as harsh on them as you are with adults. So that with that training and proper surveillance and proper regulations, well, this is one of the objectives of the legislation, is to ensure that these young people are kept out of the cannabis limelight, so that you can't smoke around schools, you cannot sell cannabis to a minor because the penalty would be severe, and minors are not supposed to frequent smoke shops and places where cannabis is being used.
So, for example, could you light up as a young person at 21 or 22 years in a stadium where secondhand smoke may not be appreciated, as just as how we ban the use of cigarettes in some of these public ventures because of the secondhand smoke and the issues? Would that apply to cannabis?
Of course it would, and even more stringently apply to cannabis, more rigorously, because you would not be able, adults would not be able to smoke cannabis in public places, next to hospitals, schools, you name it. As you say, Queen's Park, stadium. This is lunacy, madness, because you have people like Byron and myself bringing our grandchildren to the shows. We don't know all these little kids, Byron.
But let's talk about it. Cannabis tourism. Some Caribbean countries are exploring the potential of cannabis-infused experience for visitors. Is this something you would recommend?
Oh, of course. But this is the hallmark of the whole deal, because let me tell you something. Germany has recently, April 1st, decriminalized. Okay? They have decriminalized as the first step. They have used Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 to circumvent the UN and the EU treaties with respect to narcotics. Because this is why the Caribbean, Antigua, St. Vincent, we have certain international obligations with respect to trafficking in narcotics and in global narcotic. So there is a mechanism to have recreational and medicinal cannabis in two tiers, Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, as the Germans have exploded. And as such, they have been able to circumvent the treaty obligations and the UN. So did Canada. Let me read it to you. Let me read it. Rather interesting. Rather interesting. Now, this is Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. Okay? Pillar 1 enables private cultivation by adults for their own consumption, as well as communal, non-commercial cultivation of cannabis in cultivation association. So they set up an association, something akin to a cooperative, and you sell it only to members. That seemed to circumvent one aspect of the International Narcotics Act. Okay. The law came into force on April 1st, 2024, with the exception of regulations on cultivation associations. The regulations for home cultivation in cultivation association come into force July 1st, 2024. That's Pillar 1. And look at Pillar 2. Pillar 2 provides for regional model projects with commercial supply chains parallel to implementation of Pillar 1. The federal government is preparing Pillar 2. The Federal Ministry of Health has already asked the other departments for appropriate contributions. The draft law is expected to be submitted to the European Commission for consideration. Now listen how they have gotten around it. European and international law. This is the German model. And it has just come into effect April 1st. So listen how they have been successfully able to overcome a problem that we are saying, St. Vincent, they say medicinal straight, but you can still consume recreational. But there is a gray area. So let's know the German.
I have to take a short break. We come back and we're going to continue with the German approach.
Let the German approach.
Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back in a moment with Anslem. Thank you.
Mark your calendars, football fanatics. The GFA is turning 100 this year, and we're ready to celebrate. It's GFA's Legends Weekend, a 3-day extravaganza, kicking off on Friday, May 3rd, and running all the way till Sunday, May 5th. Witness history in the making. The Caribbean taking on the world in a clash of legendary international footballers on Sunday, May 5th at the electrifying Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Get ready to roar with the crowd as iconic legends like Emmanuel Adebayor, El Haj Diouf, Alex Song, Michael Essien, Luis El Matador Hernandez, Shaka Hislop, Asamoah Gyan, Ricardo Bibi Gardner, Russell Latapi, Shallery Joseph, Jason Roberts, Dexter Daps, and a whole host of superstars light up the pitch. Get your tickets now. Main pavilion $80, secondary stand $40, or the Vibe stand, yeah, that's the bleachers, $25, or upgrade your experience with a VIP ticket for $500, inclusive of a 4-course menu and premium beverages. Tickets available online at gotofed.com and all approved GFA box offices island-wide. Kickoff is at 5 p.m. And don't forget the opening match, Grenada's ex-nationals select team versus Grenadian celebrities. And the feature match with the International Football All-Stars. Keep your eyes peeled on GFA's social media for the full squad reveal. GFA's Legend Weekend. Be there.
Concerned about your general health and wellness?
Do you need to know your complete blood count, lipid profile, or HbA1c?
Maybe you're an athlete or work in an environment that requires regular drug screening.
Interested in STI screening? What about renal, liver, or thyroid tests?
All these tests, plus hundreds more, are available at Allied Laboratories.
At Allied Laboratories, we are committed to providing the best service with accurate results. We now have 3 fully equipped locations to better serve you. You can contact our Grand Anse branch at 403-3488. You can contact our Grenville branch at 410-3488. Or you can contact our newest addition, the Guelph branch, at 404-3488. Or send us an email.
We're taking care of Grenada.
Welcome back, viewers. We're here at MTV Community Forum, and we're here with Anslem Clouden, and we're discussing the cannabis industry and Grenada's situation with it. Now, before the break, Anslem, we're looking at how the Germans are handling this situation within the EU.
Within the EU, yes. European and international law. Which EU and international law restrictions must be observed? The federal government's key issue paper of October 26, 2022 already names the risk under international and EU law that are associated with the implementation of the coalition agreement. That's the cannabis. The federal government has carefully examined and assessed the risk. The assessment has been incorporated into current Pillar 2 model and the cannabis law. Well, I have already referred to Pillar 1 and 2. The federal government interprets Germany's international obligations under the relevant agreements on drug trafficking and combating drug trafficking in such a way that the implementation provided in the 2 pillars model is permissible within the framework of European and international law. So that whereas St. Vincent was early and maybe they hadn't considered a mechanism whereby they can circumvent the law to include recreational cannabis. Because remember, the Vincentian model is dealing specifically with medicinal cannabis rather than recreational cannabis. Yeah. And the fear was they didn't want to offend or act in a manner inconsistent with their treaty obligations. Okay, so it says here, it's establishment of the authority. There is hereby established for the purpose of this act a body to be known as the Medicinal Cannabis Authority. The authority shall be a body cooperative and goes on to outline the activities of the commission. But let me make the point, Byron and Brother Diallo. Look, the opportunities for economic development in this country, if we get into the medicinal cannabis industry in an organized way,
well, we are late. We are late. Where's the money going to come from? We are late. Everybody's ahead of us.
There are people calling in every day because, you see, Grenada is unique with its soil. This is why we call Isles of Spice, you know. Okay. and they had some studies done to determine soil appropriateness for this, that,
varieties and species.
Variety and species. And Grenada come out on top.
Well, what do you estimate to be the amount of money going to St. Vincent from Grenada on a weekly basis?
Boy, millions and millions of dollars. I have a good friend in St. Vincent. Well, you know, I visited there to observe the cannabis operation, the market, and so forth, the market. And look, man, he said, "Clown, you guys, where you all get all the money from? Millions of dollars."
So let me
go ahead.
This question.
Yeah.
St. Vincent has $1 billion industry.
Yes.
In this that is not captured as a sector in the calculation of their GDP.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's always been the case.
Yeah, that has always been. I know because as a businessman dealing with St. Vincent and you understand the economics and what is happening, there's always this hidden part and it's always attributed to the cannabis industry.
Yes,
And it's $1 billion thing.
$1 billion. But listen to this. And remember, this is a report prepared 22nd January 2021. The National Roundtable, the Conference of Churches in Grenada, Interagency Group Development Organization. Listen to what the then government of the day published. Opportunities, economic potential. The report called for greater awareness of the economic potential and opportunities for local and international business in regards to marijuana. Dr. Fletcher described it as an opportunity for the region to get the feet off the necks and allow us to breathe. Global market. Globally, marijuana was $1 billion industry according to global statistics. USA market, USD, 9 billion. Canadian market, USD, 2.8 billion. It is expected to reach 9.2 billion in 2025. Export potential, Dr. Fletcher cited Euromonitor statistics, which reflect a huge export potential for THC oil. And remember, THC oil is very potent and a curative oil for epilepsy, for a variety of ailments, including erectile dysfunction. And all men need to know that.
Is that a fact?
But that's a fact. A study just came out Byron, in Germany. I saw it this morning. I tried to download it. The guys have discovered that fellows suffering from erectile dysfunction They grow a CDB now and answers that shit.
Well, we don't need that in Grenada because we are all healthy male in Grenada. Well, let me tell you, we run out of time because I want to touch one other subject before we go. What's the bottom line here? What do we expect? Give us some timelines. Let's conclude on this.
No. Decriminalization by June.
Yeah.
I would use every lever at my disposal to get this through. We have an appointment with the Attorney General next Friday. We have a drafting committee. They may wish to take into consideration the proposed amendment bill that the former commission had submitted and do minor adjustments to it. But take my word for it, Byron, we're losing political capital. By June, we would get a decriminalized bill in place, and by October, November, we should come up with a comprehensive legalization strategy.
We're going to bring you back here in June to give us an update on that.
Yeah.
And you have the whole year. I want to move on to one other subject before we close. His Majesty King Charles III is the King of Grenada.
That's true.
Born on the 14th of November 1948, he's the eldest child of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. He's the second monarch of independent Grenada, inheriting the Grenadian throne from his mother upon her death on September 2022. What are the options for leaving? I'm ashamed. I feel belittled, you know, that I have a king that don't recognize me. What purpose does it serve? What are our options of leaving this? You use a term to describe it.
A referendum.
Referendum, act of parliament. I'm ashamed.
So am I.
Give me.
Yeah.
How do we?
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I take a different approach.
Yeah.
And I have articulated this in different circles.
Yeah.
I've received a rather favorable response. I even met Comrade Diali on the street, stopped and tell him this brilliant idea I have entertained and what he thinks of it. No. You had the Treaty of Versailles, the Treaty of Paris, the Treaty of Rome, the NATO. You had a Treaty of Bastille. You have the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. Now, when a country enters into bilateral or multilateral treaty arrangements, it's really a subjugation of an aspect of sovereignty. It is only sovereign states that can enter into treaties that binds that state. Now, remember, Canada was exchanged after the British had conquered Martinique and Guadeloupe. And in those days, there were wealthy sugar-producing plantocracy, right? As a matter of fact, it was described, sugar was established king, and he was a wealthy monarch.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the British discovered that, look, if they had kept Martinique and Guadeloupe as a result of conquest, it meant that the sugar imports into England would depress the British market. And you're an economist, so you know what I'm talking about. It would drop the price and it would become uneconomical for planters in the British territories to continue with the sugar plantation. Martinique and Guadeloupe, sugar would flood the British market, price, depress the price. So what they did, they gave Martinique and Guadeloupe back to the French and to Canada, which John Colbert, a British historian, described as a few miles of snow. This is why Canada now has the dual concept of Upper and Lower Canada, French and English. It was a consequence of the French giving the British Canada in exchange for Martinique and Guadeloupe. So that's a treaty. It binds you. And once you sacrifice an aspect of sovereignty and enter into that arrangement, it is really a sovereign display of your country's sovereign integrity. Sovereignty. Good. So, when we entered into the revised Treaty of Sagramas to join the CCJ, okay, we did that as a group, CARICOM, and we are signatories to it. Here comes the absurdity that, look, well, you're joining the original jurisdiction, but there is an appellate jurisdiction that your constitution requires you to have a referendum. And the referendum only comes about because of a court order that predates your sovereignty, your independence.
Yeah.
For the life of me, and I'm saying let's suspend the Constitution, as Morris did. If you have to do it temporarily, go to CCJ, and in the process of getting in there, because you're there anyhow, we part of CCJ.
We are.
We just
We're
not part
for
of the appellate jurisdiction of the court, but we are part of CMSE. We are part of the original
Single market?
the single market and economy, so that the CCJ can interpret treaties and trade matters between CARICOM states. So why are we left out because of a 1967 court order that the British imposed on us and made it so difficult for us to
Make changes to the
Constitution with respect
What was the likely
to that
challenge
order.
with this approach, if we take that approach? Where is the challenge going to come from?
Well, the challenge must come from us. We say, okay, Parliament. No, this is
It's an act of Parliament.
Yeah. Well, the Constitution came through an act of Parliament. You know.
Yeah.
So, my thinking is, look, they say you need a 2/3 majority on a referendum. Well, it was tried in St. Vincent and failed. It's tried in Grenada and failed. And it's tried in Jamaica and failed. So in a time capsule, would we ever be able to get out of this? Absurdity. Again, constitutional absurdity imposed on us by the British. What we have to do, man, is exercise our sovereign rights as a sovereign state.
That's all the time we have. Thank you very much.
And move into CCJ.
But we'll follow up further on this discussion. Viewers, that's all the time we have. We thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.